Alright, so my tutorial is going to be a few different ways that you can recolor photos. So this could be helpful if you want different colorways or if you need to show your renderings differently. Like for this one we needed to show it against a dark background, so we wanted to brighten it up a little bit. So we're just going to start. I've got this photo of a 3D printed belay device model. So it's kind of dark. It was hard to see against the background we had picked. So we're going to edit the color. One way that you can edit the color is if you come up here to Image and go to Adjustments and Hue Saturation, and you get all these little toggles that you can play with how saturated it is, how light or dark the entire picture is, or what you've selected is, and some different hues. But as you can see, where this was a black device, when you scroll through the different hues you don't really get a good saturation or a good color on the device. So we're just going to go ahead and cancel that. And there's a different way that we can edit this. You can use it for a lot of black and white photos or anything else that you need to recolor that's kind of darker. So we're going to come over here to our layer, and we are going to hit Shift, Control N, and this pulls up that we're going to make a new layer, and we'll just leave it titled as Layer 1. So now we have a new layer pulled up, and we're going to come over and pick a color that we want to use. So I'm going to go with maybe a green. We'll go right there. That'll be a nice green, hopefully. So now we've selected our color, and we are going to use the paint bucket tool and just drop that color over the entire layer. At this point, we're now going to add a selection mask to this layer. So you just come down to the bottom of your layers, and there's this little icon that's a box with a circle in it. So go ahead and click on that, and it makes this new kind of linked layer, the selection mask, onto that layer that you're working with. And we're going to come back over, switch our color to black, and then once again drop the paint bucket on it, and that makes that layer transparent again. And then we're going to switch colors again back to a white color, and for this we're going to hurry and select our belay device. So right here I just picked the quick selection tool, and it will select our picture. So that looks pretty good. And then we switch just to the regular paintbrush tool. And so I've got already a pretty big paintbrush option. So now you just paintbrush in the areas that you want the color to change. So since we've selected it, I don't need to be too careful about edges or anything because the selection takes care of that. And right now it looks kind of awful, just like a paper cutout or something. Doesn't look great. But once you've colored it all in, then we are going to hit Control D for deselect. That makes the selection go away. Switch back just to your regular mouse and come over here to layers. So now we are going to click back on the color that we dropped on it in the first place, so the green, not the selection mask. And you can see that your shape has now appeared in the selection mask. So we're clicked on the color you picked, and then there's this layer function toolbar. Right now it's set to normal. We're just going to do that drop down menu and come all the way down to color, and it switches over, and you can see you kept the details in the 3D print, but now it's a little bit brighter. If you didn't like that color, you could go back and adjust that or do the whole thing again. That's part of why we added this extra layer, so that if something goes wrong, you still have your original layer. You can edit things without having to start over from scratch. So now we have this colored, and it's a bit brighter than black. So now if you still didn't like that color, you could come back up to Image, Adjustments, and go down to the Hue Saturation. And then you can play around, and we could make it a darker green, or at this point it can even go into like a rusty orange. Some of these colors still aren't very pretty, so if you wanted a specific one, you'd still want to go back through that selection process, but I think that's kind of a nice teal color. You could saturate it a little bit more if you wanted, or take it back down to black if you wanted it back to black for whatever reason. So now that is recolored, and you have more options for editing this color. So that's really nice if you want to be able to put this against a different background, or if you're showing different colorways. This was just a 3D print, so it obviously wouldn't be your final render that you'd present. So we're going to move to one other way that you can recolor pictures. So this time we're moving over to kind of this rendering of a sock. And so we've got our layer. We're going to hit Shift Control N again to make our new layer. So this way you either have a blank layer, or if you want to work directly on the sock appearing, which I think we will for this one, so we'll just get rid of that layer. And you can click on your original layer, right click on it and hit Duplicate Layer. So now we have a copy of the layer to work on. So now we're going to go back and use our Quick Selection tool again. If you don't want to use the Quick Selection tool, you can also use the Lasso tool if you want to zoom in and get it perfect. I like the Magnetic Lasso tool because it just follows along the clean lines, so that's nice if you've got a defined line. But for now, we will stick with the Quick Selection tool, so we're just going to drag and select the sock, kind of fill in this edge where it missed. Then you can also either use keyboard shortcuts if you want to add or subtract from that, or you can come up here to where it shows just the lasso tool, subtracting from it or adding to it. So we've got that all selected that we wanted. Now we're going to come back over to the brush tool, but we're going to right click on it this time and select the color replacement tool. So now we've got that, and we're going to switch this, if it's not already, to this continuous sampling. So if we hover here long enough, there you go, you can see it says sampling continuous, and that'll help preserve the pattern underneath so that you're not making just a big paint blob. And then we're going to pick a new color, so not everything's going to end up green. We'll go with like a nice blue maybe. So we'll go with that blue and see how it looks. And we've got kind of a small brush size, so I will bump the brush size up a little bit. Also, if you're doing different things with the brush, you can adjust hardness, which is really nice because then you can either get a really sharp edge or kind of a faded edge if you want to fade something into it. So we'll go a little bit bigger on our brush size. There we go. And then you can brush over all of it. So this is kind of turning out like a neon blue sock. Let's get a little bit bigger brush tool so this goes faster. So you can see you still have some of the detail underneath. I think I like the other way a little bit better, but it kind of depends on what you're working on, what recoloring you're going to want to use. And again, you didn't have to select all of this, but it's nice because now I don't have to be super careful with the edges. And now I have a blue sock that I can do different hue, saturation adjustments on it, or color balance, vibrance. There's a lot of good options here if you go to image adjustments. So we're just gonna throw away that layer quick, and we'll just go up here as if we're just going to adjust the red sock with the adjustments. So again, that's image, adjustments, we'll go hue, saturation, and we can also adjust it here, and you can see that is actually maybe a better option for this sock than that color replacement. But the color replacement can come in handy for like reflective surfaces, or I don't know, just something that this regular hue and saturation adjustment wouldn't work as well for. So you can see here, just scrolling through, you could have a lot of different colorway options in a short amount of time if you want to show maybe you're going to produce a full rainbow of socks. And so you can show that you've got all these different colors. You could make them super neon socks, or just barely colored. But I think that's one of my favorite parts of recoloring, is that you can show your different colorways really fast without having to start over from scratch. And this one I didn't make a new layer, so now it's changed my original. So that's another good reason to always duplicate your layers or save your base image that you can work from. And like we were talking about on here, it's nice to have individual layers that you can edit colors, but that's about it. There's a lot of other ways that you can recolor images. These are just a few of the ones that I use most frequently, but that is about it for this tutorial.